Visible? Yes or no? Someone can answer.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I will not explain this complete derivation. What are the fundamental concepts used for the problem, solving the problem? Only those concepts I will explain. Even the problems also similar type of structure may be given. At each node, suppose node 1. So this is one boundary condition here. So what is the boundary condition? It is looks like if you put this hashed line like inclined these lines that indicate that this end is fixed. There's a one bound. There are two boundary conditions here. Q1 is the one boundary condition and Q2 is one more boundary condition. That is Q1 is displacement along x direction. Q2 is the displacement along y direction. I think. So now what is the value? Suppose node 1 is fixed. So what is the value of Q1? Someone can answer. What is the value of Q1? Is it 0 or non-zero? Because same type of boundary condition we are applying for all types of problems. What is the value of Q1? What is the value of Q1? Is it 0 or non-zero when node 1 is fixed? So you have to answer. I hope PPT is visible. My voice is audible. Yes or no? Yes or no? So you have to, someone can answer. What is the boundary condition when node 1 is fixed? What is the boundary condition? Huh?
0, sir.
That is at node 1, Q1 is equal to 0. At node 1, Q1 is equal to 0. 1 minute. Q2 is equal to 0 because this node 1 is fixed. Similarly, if node 2 is considered, there may be some problems like one element like this. So almost all boundary conditions are shown here. What is the value of Q3 here? Q3, is it 0 or non-zero? Because it is support, it is a roller supported. The node 2 can move along x direction. Node 2 can move along x direction because it is a roller supported. Only it cannot move in the vertical directions. Hence, Q3 is not equal to 0. You have to find out Q3 value. And Q4 you have to find Q4 is 0 because it is supported. So it cannot move in the vertical direction. Hence, Q4 is equal to 0. Q3 is not equal to 0. When you come to node 3, Q5 is it 0 or non-zero? Q5 is 0 or non-zero. It is not supported. When it is not supported, node 3 can move along x direction. That is value is given by Q5. And in the similar way, node 3 can move along y direction. That is given by Q6. Now, when you come to node 1 is fixed. So Q7 is equal to 0, Q8 is equal to 0. So these are the boundary conditions for different nodes. Then if you consider the forces at node 1, no external forces, hence F1, F2 is equal to 0. At node 2, no forces, hence F3, F4 is equal to 0. At node 3, only one force existing, that is F, then F5 is equal to 0. If you have any doubt, I think so now most of the time you have to find out the displacement at different point. That is the major things in here. So these things are not required in. So now one more matrix you have to remember, that is transformation matrix. This transformation matrix is LM0000LM. That is Q dash. It is in the local coordinate system. Is given by L into Q, where L is equal to LM0000LM. That transformation matrix you have to remember for the some problems. Then direction cosines is also very important. So direction cosine is nothing but x2 minus x1. As per this diagram is considered x2 minus x1 divided by LE. but the node number is not necessarily it is all 1 2, it may be 4 4 1 also. So in such cases general formula is Sj minus Si. So Sj is nothing but the coordinate position of jth node minus the coordinate x coordinate of the ith node. And similarly, m is equal to sine theta. It is not necessarily, it is always y2 minus y1 because we have different nodes. In such cases, it will become yj minus yi. So the second node will be the jth node. The first node, I'm not saying it is a node 1 and node 2. The second node will be the jth node, and first node will be the ith node. If second node may be 5 or 6, whatever it may be, that depending upon the problems. That means these two formulas you have to remember. So whenever you are saying L, so that is x2 minus x1 or xj minus x1 divided by Le. So once you say m, it is sine theta, that's equal to yj minus y1 divided by length of the element. Better to use capital letter L for the length of the element to avoid confusion between the direction cosine L as well as length of the element. Now length of the element, you might have studied in your mathematics, is given by the x2 minus x1 the whole square plus y2 minus y1 the whole square. That is the length of the element. In some problem, they may not give the length of the element. So these things are not required for your this one. And finally, you have to remember the stiffness matrix for the truss. So this part is AE by LE, because even for the bar also multiplication factor for the stiffness matrix is AE divided by LE, and this is changes. So only if you remember first 4 elements, that is sufficient. And the last classes are informed. So if you remember the first 4 elements, L square, LM, M square, that's the first 4 elements. Then it is a positive diagonal. So this in the diagonal side also it is L square, LM, M square. Then right side, the top right side. So whatever the 4 terms are here, that is you have to write it in the negative sign. The bottom left again it is the same 4 term. It is a negative sign, and only the diagonal line it is positive. Other opposite side it is negative. That somehow you have to remember this stiffness matrix, but it is little bit easy compared to beam. If you remember these 4 the elements or stiffness coefficient, that is sufficient. Then one more formula you have to remember is final formula for the strain. The strain is given by 1 by Le minus L minus M Lm. I think someone can mute the audio. I am getting some sound. So now, so epsilon is equal to, this formula you have to remember, epsilon is equal to 1 by Le minus L minus M Lm. This is the equation for the epsilon into the displacement vector. This is a element displacement vector, because you are finding out the strain for the element, hence it is the element displacement vector. Epsilon is equal to this equation. But remember only the epsilon equation. So epsilon equation. But once you know, if most of the time you have to find out the stress. So we know that stress is equal to E into epsilon. Instead of remembering one formula for the stress and one more formula for the strain. So remember the equation for the strain. If you multiply the strain by equation E or Young's modulus, that will be the equation for the stress. That's why instead of remembering 2 formulas, remember only one formula, the formula for the epsilon. So epsilon is given by 1 by Le minus L. This is Le is referred to length of the element, and Lm refers to the direction cosine. This is 2 are minus and another 2 are positive. This is, we have displacement vector, that is the element displacement vector. If there is a 2 element in the truss, so you have to find out the strain in one element is different from strain in another element. For the element 1, you have to write epsilon 1. Similarly, stress in the element will become epsilon 2. If you want to find out the stresses in other element, then it will be epsilon 2 and one more is stress 2. That's why I'm telling you to remember this matrix, this equation for the strain. If you multiply by strain by Young's model, that will get stress equation. This already we have discussed. I'm not going in details. Now you are going on for problems on truss. So here, if you read the problem statement, we have 2-bar truss. So that means we have the truss. This is the 1 bar. It is almost like a bar element, and this is one more bar. So, or you can say that this is one. This is one truss segment, and this is one more truss segment. And you have to find out the determine the displacement. This is nothing but Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4, etc. Stresses, already you have discussed about the formula for the strain. From the formula for the strain, you can get the value of stress by just multiplying with Young's modulus. Then you have to find out the reaction forces. E is given and AE is also given. But in this chapter, either we can express all unit in terms of millimeter or meter, but you have to use consistency. You have to use only one unit. But in the case of beams, in the case of torque, the torsion of the shaft, all dimension you have to keep it in the meter, and forces you have to keep it in Newton in the case of beams and torsion of the shaft, because there you get the angular deformation theta will get in terms of radians. But when you come to the problems on bar and finite element analysis of the trusses, either you can keep it in millimeter or you can keep it in meter, but you have to use the consistency. Consistently, you have to use the same unit from first starting of the problem to the end of the problems. Anyhow, in these problems, they have given the units in terms of millimeter square. Keep in the millimeter square only. No need to convert into meter, and then during conversion also there is a chance of doing the mistake in the examination. Now all units are given in terms of millimeter square, millimeter, and millimeter square, etc. Keep the unit same unit. No need to go for meter. But conversion of them into these all dimension into meter is required for beam as well as the torsion of the shaft. That's only for the module 3. Now this is the element. So now they are not given any element number as well as the node number. In such cases, we can choose the node number as well as element number. But there are in some examination question, they will give them element number. Imagine they will mention this is element 2, this is element 1. Then we cannot change it as this is a 1 and 2. And sometimes they give this node number as this is 1, node number 1, node number 2, and this is node number 3. In such cases, you cannot change the node number. The problem is if they given a node number, you have to retain a node number with respect to those node number and those elements. So you have to derive stiffness matrix. But as per this problem, this is the first problem, so that's why I'm taken straightforward for problem. It's a little bit simple. For that, first we are directly going for finite element modeling. So now we have node 1, node 2, node 3. I'm going back saying that this is the node 1, this is node 2, and this is node 3, and this is the element 1. This is element 2. So everything is fine. PPT is audible now. This PPT is visible. Hello? Someone can answer whether PPT is visible.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Otherwise, sometimes because I am putting in the complete PPT mode, I'm not getting what is happening behind the sense whether our network is correct or this Google Meet is working or not. I'm seeing only the PPT at present. Once you put it the complete PPT mode, I'm seeing only the PPT. I'm not seeing anything. That's why I'm in between. I'm asking whether PPT is visible or audible. Otherwise, go on. I'm go on talking only, even though if it is disconnected. So now this is the as per this problem is considered. I'm consider this is node 1, node 2, node 3. This is the element 1. This is the element 2. You have to show the displacement for this node as well as this node. So now I am written the finite element model. So at node 1, in particular truss is concerned, there are only 2 DOF for each node, because already you are discussing the DOF for each node. So you are describing this displacement in global coordinate, hence we'll get 2 displacement. One displacement is along x direction, that is referred by Q1, and one more displacement is along y direction, that is referred by, indicated as Q2. At node 1, there are 2 DOF. So now only I'm saying this is this boundary condition I'm saying. So what about Q1? If you go and see, so node 1 is fixed here. When node 1 is fixed, so what are the Q1 is 0, and similarly Q2 is equal to 0. Later stage you have to write the displacement matrix. You have to apply the boundary condition. In such cases you should know what is Q1 value and Q2 value. So in this case node 1 is fixed. This representation shows it is a fixed end. Hence node 1 is fixed. Hence Q1 is equal to 0 and Q2 is equal to 0. Now only I am saying, giving the value of Q1 and Q2, you are applying the boundary condition. I am explaining the boundary condition now itself. So Q1 is equal to 0 as well as Q2 is equal to 0. So when you come to node 3, this is the node 3, the leftmost side. It is a node 3. At node 3, again node 3 is fixed. So when node 3 is fixed, corresponding degrees of freedom or displacement is node 3 can move along x direction. The how much distance it is moved along x direction is given by Q5. And how much distance it is moved along y direction for node 3, that is given by Q6. Q6, imagine if it is moved in the vertical direction by 3 mm, so your Q3 is equal to 6. If the same node is moved in the downward direction, vertical downward direction, then it will be negative, like minus 3m. Then if you consider node 2, so node 2 is not fixed and load of 12 kN is applied at node 2. So hence, so your Q3 is not equal to 0 and Q4 is not equal to 0. That means this node 2 can move along x direction. At the same time, node 2 also can move along x direction, y direction, or node 2 can move along horizontal direction. In the similar way, node 2 can also move along vertical direction. That means Q3 is not equal to 0 and Q4 is not equal to 0. As per this problem is considered, so Q1 is equal to 0, Q2 is equal to 0, Q5 is equal to 0, Q6 is equal to 0. Then you have to find out the displacement of the node 2. So it is only the linear displacement Q3 and Q4. When you come to beam, so one is linear displacement, normally you are referring as V1, and one more is angular deformation, that is given by theta 1. When you come to shaft, so there is only one DOF for the node. That DOF is only the angular deformation theta 1. I am explaining revising the shaft also. When you come to bar problems, there is only 1 degrees of freedom. At each node, it can move only one direction. It may be in the along x direction or y direction. I was giving example of fan rod. It can move only in the vertical direction, not in horizontal direction. It is only one DOF. But when you come to truss, there are 2 DOF for each node. Both DOFs are linear motion or linear displacement. Now, when you come to the element 2, so element 2 is horizontal member. We can see here, this is the element 2. This is a horizontal member of the truss. For that, the length of the element is known. The L2 is 500. For a horizontal element, the length of the element is given, that is 500. But this inclined member, that is element 1, length of the element is not given. From trigonometry, we can get the length of the element, because this dimension is 400. Vertical height of the triangle is, if you consider this is a right angle triangle, height of the triangle is 300 mm. The base of the triangle is 400. Hypotenuse you can find out by 300 square plus square root of 300 square plus 400 square, because sometimes they may give the dimension for each element. Sometimes they will not give the dimension. They are given the dimension in the indirect way. In such cases, you have to calculate the length of the element. So length element 1, this is not the length of the element 1, it's L1. So L1 is the 400 square plus this is because this distance base of the this distance is 400, one more is 500, 300. The finally you get 500. The length of the element 1 is 500 mm square. That's like this. This is 400 square plus 300 square. This is the length of the element. In the similar way, length of the element 2, it is strictly speaking, this is the L1 and this is L2. So this is the formula. But if you know the coordinate point also we can get the length. But in this case, they are given the dimensions straight away by using a trigonometric concept. You can find out the length of the element 1. If only the coordinate position of node 1 and node 2 are given, so then also we can find out the length of the element. General formula is x final minus x initial node the whole square plus y final node minus y initial. That means once you know the imagine line, so two endpoints of the lines are known, or coordinate point of the two endpoints of the lines are known, then we can find out the length of the line by using this. Normally in mathematics you are referring as x2 minus x1 the whole square plus y2 minus y1 the whole square. The same formula you are writing, final node minus initial node, x final x minus x initial the whole square plus y final y initial the whole square. It is mathematical equation only, or routine regular mathematics you are using when when the coordinates of the 2 points are known, like P1 and P2. The length between P1 and P2 can be calculated by using this form, but only slightly modified for finite element, because not necessarily the all elements having node 1 and node 2, because you can see here this is the element 2. Suppose if lengths are not given, then not necessarily it is x1 and x2, it may be x3 minus x1. Now we can get the coordinates also. These are the coordinate point. X coordinate for element 1, the node 1 x coordinate, node 2 x coordinate, this is node 3 x coordinate. I think you can see here. So now this point is referred as 0. The left and bottommost point is referred as x0 and y0. Now if you consider node 1, the coordinate of the node 1 is the 500 plus 400, it will be 900 x coordinate. The y coordinate is 0, because this we are taking as a reference. When you come to node 2, this is the node 2 where 12 kilonewton is acting, that is the node 2. The x coordinate is 500 and y coordinate is 300. When you come to node 1, that is top left corner, that is node 3. So this x coordinate is 0, because this is 0 and this is 0. Same table is written here. Now you have to write element connectivity table, but in this case all elements are continuous. This is node 1, node 2, node 3. But some cases this may be the node 3 and this may be the node 1. In such cases element connectivity table is very, very important. But element connectivity table is nothing but element 1 is made up of node 1 as well as node 2. So if element 2 is made up of node 2 and node 3, or in simple way, element 1, the ith node is 1, jth node is 2. Or first node for the element 1 is 1, the second node for the element 1 is equal to 2. In the similar way, element 2, the ith node is 2, jth node is 3. Same thing is shown here. This is the element connectivity table. Now you have to find out length of the element already known. The L1 is equal to 500, L2 is equal to 500 mm. For element 1 as well as element 2, now you have to find out the direction cosine. That finding out direction cosine is the important step in the case of the finite element analysis of the trusses. I think those around 37 students are here, just logged in. So they joined the classes. Just type your USN number. Afterwards, you may forget to enter the USN number. Type your USN number in the chat box. All 38 students. If you don't type, then you are considered as absent. Afterwards, don't tell me I was present for the classes. All 38. It should not cross more than 38 also. If there are more than 38, I'll take the photos. On the right side, we'll get the participants. I'll take the photos. That will be, I'll consider as attendance. I hope you not do. You get 38 or below 35, 38. If there is a below 38, then by entering your USN number, you are leaving the session. If you do that also, I can take the photos, and after that, any randomly I'll take the photos. That I'll consider as for attendance. Just for the sake of attending the class, don't attend. With some interest, with some objectives, you have to attend the classes. So you have to learn. Finite element analysis is not just learning one subject. You are learning the many subject. It is required for your design or analysis. So one subject is engineering mechanics. The one more subject you are learning is theory of elasticity. You are not studied, but most of the equations are you are getting from the theory of elasticity. One more subject fundamentals you are learning is theory of plasticity. One more is engineering mechanics. One more is your design concept, vibrations. Then you are studying the heat transfer. You are studying earlier days there is a the dynamic analysis you are studying. It is not studying only one subject as per your finite element analysis consider. It's a tool. So to use the tool, you have to you should know the many subject fundamentals. So still 24 is there, remaining you enter. I'll not repeat. I cannot give the instruction each and every time. So when you come to the direction cosine, so this step is very important, and some local books they are not given in details, but try to understand. It is a simple formula. You have to remember xj minus xi. Say L1, it is nothing but cos theta. Cos theta, don't remember opposite side by hypotenuse, etc. Remember xj minus xi divided by length of the element. For the first element, the xj. So xj is for the first element. This is the first element. So xj is how much? So this is node 1 and this is node 2. So xj is x2 minus x1 divided by L1. First we write this formula. Xj minus x1 by L1, or the final node minus initial node divided by L1. This problem it is straightforward and simple. The next class I am going for slightly complex problems. There, this xj minus xi is very, very important. So now for the first element is considered, the first node is 1 and second node is 2, or jth node is 2 and ith node is 1. Hence jth node is, hence you are writing x2 minus x1. It is not very simple as just x2 minus x1. For few problems that is slightly complex in nature. So, but try to remember xj minus xi divided by length of the element. So x2 coordinate is 500 minus x1. It is not shown here. This is 900 in the previous table is there, divided by L1 divided by length of the element. And finally, you are getting minus 0.8. That L1 is equal to minus 0.8. In the similar way, you have to find out M1. So M1 is given by yj minus yi divided by L1. Just I am putting superscript because this is refers to element 1. You are finding out the direction cosine for the element 1. If once you understand this, how to find out the direction cosine, then if you remember stiffness matrix and simple mathematical calculation, then complete chapter is easy. Only direction cosine calculations are very important, and some books are not given complete details of how to find out. But you have to remember only these two formulas. So yj is 300. This is yj is nothing but y2 minus y1 is 0. This is here, the y coordinate is 0. Divided by length of the element is, and finally you are getting 0.6. In the similar way, you have to find out the direction cosine for the element 2. So that means L2, that is nothing but cos 2. Don't worry about cos theta. What is the cos theta for the element 2? Even though it is horizontal, it may get 0 or minus 1, whatever. Don't worry about all those things. So now, write the general formula xj minus xi divided by 2. For the element 2, the second node or jth node is x3, node 3, and ith node is 2. Divided by L2 is, anyhow, you know the length of the element. The L2 is 500. So x3 is 0. Here it is 0. X2 is 500 divided by 500. Finally, we get minus 1. In the similar way, M2 is y of j minus y of I divided by 2. For element 2, the jth node is 3 and ith node is 2. That's why I'm telling, don't remember x2 minus x1 or y2 minus y1. You have to always remember yj minus yi divided by the length of the element. Yj minus yi divided by length of the element 2. The finally, because the element 2 is horizontal, hence your sin theta is equal to 0. Then in the case of stiffness matrix, we have Lm square, the Lm, L square, M square is required. So after getting these values, better to calculate what is L1, M1. Otherwise, in the stiffness matrix, you have to write it twice to minimize the time for completion of the exam problems in the examination. You multiply those two separately, get the value what is the L1, M1. So here L1 square is equal to here, because we have stiffness matrix. The stiffness matrix we have L square, L1, M1, L1, M1, M1 square. Then some term, these four terms are negative. These four terms are negative. Right bottommost terms are positive. So instead of writing here 0.8 into minus 0.8 into minus 0.8, so just find out L1 square separately, Lm separately, M1 square separately. Just substitute all the values directly in the stiffness matrix. So already you have derived this stiffness matrix K1. Once you derive this stiffness matrix, so my suggestion is, strong suggestion is, so find out this L1 square separately outside the this matrix, L1, M1 separately. And similarly for the element 2 also, find out M2 square, L2 square, L2, M2 separately, so that the substitution will be easy and you can reduce 1 or 2 steps instead of writing the matrix, complete matrix. So now, after knowing the value of L1, M1 and M1 square, so this is the formula for the stiffness matrix. This formula you have to remember. The multiplication factors for the stiffness matrix for the truss element is same as bar element, that is nothing but AE by L1. This is the stiffness matrix for the element 1. In the similar way, you, one minute, there is small mistakes here. Now already you have the stiffness matrix for the element 1. Now you have to find out stiffness matrix for the element 2. This is the final stiffness matrix, because element 1 is made up of node 1 and 2. You have to remember we have 2 degrees of freedom for the element node 1. Hence corresponding DOF I am showing here. 1, 2, that is corresponding to displacement along x direction of node 1, and DOF2 correspond to displacement of the element node 1 along y direction. Similarly, for the node 2, the displacement along x direction is Q3, and displacement along y direction is Q4, that I already shown in the previous slides. And for element 1, the degrees of freedom are 1, 2, 3, 4. I'll show it once again. So element 1, this is the element 1, degrees of freedom are Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4. Hence, in the stiffness matrix table, you are writing 1, 2, 3, 4. For the element 1, the degrees of freedom are 1, 2, 3, 4. Now only I'll tell what are the degrees of freedom for the element 2. For the element 2, there are 4 degrees of freedom. At node 2, there are 2 degrees of freedom, Q3, Q4. And at node 3, the degrees of freedom are 5 and 6. Same thing is shown here. So this is K1 is 1, 2, 3, 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4. K2 is the second element. The K2 degrees of freedom are Q3, Q4, Q5, Q6. Those are the degrees of freedom. Now we have K2 and K3. No, K2 and K1 and K2. From K1 and K2, you have to get the final stiffness matrix. That is a global stiffness matrix, same as what you have done for the beam element or torsional element or bar element. Same procedure you are following. You are not doing any deviation from the regular finite element procedure. So whatever may be the type of the element in the finite element, the procedure remains same, the steps remain same, only there may be changes in the stiffness matrix. Stiffness matrix for the bar is different, stiffness matrix for the beam is different, stiffness matrix for the shaft is different, stiffness matrix for the truss is different. If you know those stiffness matrices, then the procedure remains same. Now we have K1 and K2. So I will not explain in details. You have K1, we have K2. From K1 and K2, you have to get the final stiffness matrix. The order of the final stiffness matrix is 6 because, so if I go back and I'll explain to you, see here. Here only you can see what is the total degrees of freedom. We have the truss structure. Someone can tell what are the degrees, the total degrees of freedom for the whole truss structure. Whole truss structure. How many degrees of freedom? Someone can answer. What are the degrees of freedom? Degrees of freedom for the whole structure. There are element 1 and element 2. I am not specifically asking what is Q1 or Q2. I am telling what are the total degrees of freedom for the given truss structure. I am not talking about the element. Given truss structure is having 2 elements. What are the degrees of total degrees of freedom for the given truss structure? So there are 40 students are in the session. Only 34 they have typed your USN number, and remaining are not typed. And those who are joined the session through official mail ID, DMSIT mail ID, just if you type your USN number is sufficient, because automatically your name also displayed. So those who are joined by Gmail, just you have to type your name also, because sometimes you might have given different names for even the Gmail. Here some pet names are common, some other names you might have given. Instead of saying Praveen Kumar TN, I might have given TN Praveen. That's all, like that. So that's why those who are joined through other mail ID, enter your name as well as the USN number. Those who are joined this session through college mail ID or bmsit.in, if you enter your USN number, that's sufficient. So now, if you go to degrees of freedom, I'm talking about the degrees of freedom. So there are node 1, 2 degrees of freedom, node 2, because when you come to truss, there are 2 degrees of freedom. For each node, there are 2 degrees of freedom. If you are able to remember that difference, what is the degrees of freedom for the bar, there is only 1 degree of freedom. Each node, only displacement Q1. When you come to beam, there are 2 degrees of freedom at node 1, V1 and theta 1, that is the degrees of freedom. When you come to shaft, the degrees of freedom for each node is theta 1, only 1 degrees of freedom. So that is the angular rotation. But when you come to truss, this node can move along x direction as well as y direction. Hence, each node is having 2 DOF. This is a node 1, node 2, and node 3. There are 3 nodes are there in the given truss structure. Each node is having 2 degrees of freedom. Then what is the total? What are the total degrees of freedom? Now, someone can answer. So total degrees of freedom is nothing but it is the order of the stiffness matrix. Now, there are 3 nodes. So each node is having 2 degrees of freedom. That means 3 node into 2. So finally, your order of the stiffness matrix is 6. We can see here 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 5, 6. Here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is the global stiffness matrix. How you are getting the global stiffness matrix is, so finally you have to write the table. This table you have to write. So you write this matrix. Put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Put the boxes. Just draw a thin horizontal line to create the boxes. Now transfer all 1, 2, 3, 4. K1 you have to transfer to the global stiffness matrix. For K1, 1, 2, 3, 4 only exist. And K2 you have to start from 3, 4, 5, 6. And after combining that same as bar element or beam is no different. So then finally we get the global stiffness matrix. So now we have the global stiffness matrix for the second element start from 3, 4, 5, 6. That's why you have started from 3, 3. That is 5.12 is contribution from the element 1. The 8 is contribution from the element 2. Similarly, minus 3.84 is contribution from the element 1. And 0 is contribution from element 2. That means 3, 4, 5, 6. So this is the DOF for the second element. Whatever the values here, that you have to shift it to or transform these values to global stiffness matrix to the corresponding the boxes or corresponding degrees of freedom. That is a global stiffness matrix. Now this is the global stiffness matrix. Only one element, there is a difference, that is instead of 5.12 plus 0.8, finally we get 13.18. I am done the showing there only. Now you have to write the force vector. At node 1, no forces, external forces, hence F1 is equal to 0. We can see here. F1, F2, F3, F4, F5, F6 correspond to node 3, and F4, F5 correspond to node 2. So now F1, F2, any external forces at node 1? Someone can answer. Anyone can answer. Any external forces at node 1? If you consider the original force, original diagram. Here. So no external force at node 1, hence F1 is 0. No horizontal force at node 1, no vertical force at node 1. Similarly, at node 3, there is no horizontal force, there is no vertical force. At node 2, only one vertical force, that is 12 kilonewton. The 12 kilonewton is acting in the downward direction. When you're writing in the matrix, that should be the negative. Upward forces, you have to take it as positive. That's a sign convention. And downward forces, you have to take it as negative. We have only 12 kilonewton. That is Q and F1, F2, F3, F4. F4 is the 12 kilonewton. That is minus 12 kilonewton. Here, same thing is shown here. F1, F2, 0. F1, F2, 0. F3 is also 0 because there is no horizontal force acting at node 2. Only vertical force is acting at node 2. That is F4 because the 12 kilonewton is acting in the downward directions. But positive force, upward forces are taking as a positive. Hence, it is minus 12 kilonewton. So instead of writing kilonewton, I am writing as 12 into 10 to the 3. No external forces are acting at node 3. Hence, it is 0, 0. Then when you come to displacement, at node 1 is fixed end, similar to the beam or similar to the bar. So when bar is fixed or beam is fixed, the corresponding displacements are same. Now, already you have studied many elements. This only you should be able to distinguish other element from the truss element. The truss element, again, node 1 is fixed. Hence, Q1 is equal to 0, Q2 is equal to 0. The displacement along x direction is 0, displacement along y direction is 0. At node 2 is not fixed. It can move up and down depending upon the loading condition. Hence, Q3, Q4 you have to find out. Then, so node 3 is fixed. That means Q5 and Q6 are 0. These are the boundary conditions. Now we have the global equilibrium equation. That is nothing but KQ is equal to F. So now we have the global stiffness matrix K already we have derived. We have the force vector F. We have this displacement vector, global displacement vector. Once you write KQ is equal to F, you get the final equation. Now KQ is equal to F. Already we have the K equation. We have the Q equation. I am writing Q1 is equal to 0, Q2 is equal to 0, Q3, Q4 you have to find out. Q5, Q6 is again 0. Force vector 0, 0. And only one external force is acting at node 2. That too, it is acting in the downward direction. Hence, it is minus 12 into 10 to the power 3, that kilonewton. Again, it is multiplication factor is missing. So same thing should not happen to you. Here, multiplication factor is 10 to the power 4. Most of the time, students also missed multiplication factor 10 to the power 4. If you miss, then you will lose around 50% of the marks. So here, there is a 10 to the power 4 multiplication factor is there. Now, most of the time, in this case, you are going for the elimination approach. But when next time starting with the finite element analysis of heat transfer, there you are not going for the elimination approach because the elimination approach is helpful only when there is a zero boundary conditions. Zero boundary condition is nothing but Q1 is equal to 0, Q2 is equal to 0, Q5 is equal to 0, Q6 is equal to 0. Those are the zero boundary conditions. But in most of the heat transfer problems, so those are not the zero boundary condition. Temperature at node 1 is not equal to 0. Here displacement may be 0. Temperature may not be 0. Those are comes under non-zero boundary condition. For non-zero boundary conditions, we cannot go for elimination approach. Even though we are going for the elimination approach, it is slightly complex. Hence, most of the time we are going for the penalty approach. In the next, after finishing this trusses, I am going for the heat transfer. Before going for the heat transfer problem, I'll do small problem, simple problems from the bar, so that you can understand better about penalty approach. Penalty approach also we are done in the class, but still I'll do one or two problems, simple problems from the bar using penalty approach, so that you'll understand better how to apply the penalty approach, especially for the heat transfer problems. You have to apply only the penalty approach, because the boundary conditions are not 0 at node 1 or at one end of the bar. Temperature is not 0. It may be temperature may be infinity in the sense ambient temperature, or temperature may be given like T0, it may be given, but temperature is, most of the cases the temperature is not 0 in heat transfer. So those will comes under non-zero boundary condition. For non-zero boundary condition, in general, you are applying penalty approach, not elimination approach. Elimination approach is very simple, as already you are familiar. So Q1 is equal to 0, eliminate first row and first column. Q2 is equal to 0, eliminate second row and second column. Q5 and Q6 are 0, eliminate fifth row and fifth column. Then, resultant is this 2 by 2 matrices. I think you know how to. You can use your calculator. I think if it is like calculator series of 991, you have to go for the mode. So there is a mode. So click this mode, you will get complex, COMP complex. So one mode is like SD, REG, base, etc. Once again, if you click, you will get equations. So equation is for you have to enter one, like your regular mobile. This one you have to enter one. So it will ask whether unknowns are 2 or 3. So here unknowns are 2. You have to press 2. Then it will ask for the A1. This is A1. This is A2. This 0 is C1. This is B1. This is B2. And this is C2. That I'm telling how we can find out this value without spending much time. So in the calculator, there is option, equation option. So up to 3 equation you can solve, because here there are 3 equations. In this case, there are only 2 equations. This is A1, B1, this is C1. I'm talking about, this is like as per your mathematics, this is X1, this is X2, this is C1. So this is constant A1, B1, this is A1, this is A2, B2, this is C2. You check for the mode. So you press the mode. If you don't get, first you may get computer and complex, then you'll get SD, REG, base. Third will get equations. If it is 991 series Casio. So if you press the equation that is correspond to equations 1, you'll get unknowns. It will ask for the unknowns. There are 2. If you press 2, so it will ask for the A1. A1 is this. You have to enter the value of A1. Then you put equal. Then you'll get ask for the A2 value. Then it will ask for the C1 value. Similarly, if you enter in the values, if you enter once again, that's if you put equal, then it will ask for the B1, B2, and this is C2. Straight away, within few seconds, within the 10 to 15 seconds, we can get the value of Q and Q3 and Q4. So once after finding out the Q3 and Q4, you have to find out the stresses. So element, then you have to find out element displacement vector. For the element 1, Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4. So Q3 is minus 0.1 mm. Q4 is minus 0.683. That means the node 2 is moving downward direction. Hence, we'll get minus. And same node 2 is moving towards left side. Hence, we are getting the negative. You have the formula for the stress. Stress is equal to E by L1 minus L1 M1 plus L1 M1 into displacement vector for the element 1. Element 1 displacement vector is already you have seen. Element 1 displacement vector is Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4. That is the element 1 displacement vector. Element 2 displacement vector is Q3, Q4, Q5, Q6. That is the element 2 displacement vector. Similarly, you have to find out Q2. This is sigma 2. Sigma 2 is again E2 divided by L2. This is the same formula. Then you have to find out the reaction force. The reaction force is equal to So again, in the case of bar, in the case of trusses, you have to consider the global stiffness, global matrices for finding out the reaction. I am talking about R, G. G refers to global reaction force is equal to global stiffness matrix into global displacement vector. That already we have 0, 0 is for Q1 and Q2, and Q3, Q4 this, and this is 0, 0 minus the force vector. This is the force vector. Finally, we can get the reaction. What is the reaction force at one? The reaction force is nothing but, imagine you are pressing the spring in the helical spring in the downward direction. If you apply 50 kilonewton load in the downward direction, so if there is a resistance force, you can feel there is one more force is acting in the upward direction. That is nothing but a resistive force that is acting in the opposite direction. If external load is acting in the downward direction, or if you try to pull the cantilever beam in the downward direction, because of the resistance offered by the cantilever beam, end of the cantilever beam try to pull you in the upward direction. That is, those are nothing but a reaction forces. The same thing is even in the case of that. Now that is complete. That means first you have to only as per your truss problems are considered. One formula is you have to remember for the stiffness matrix, and one more formula for these trusses, the sigma 1 and sigma. If you remember those two, and if you know the basic concept, you can solve any number of problems from the truss. Just this is some of the university examination. Here you can see here, this is element 1. They have given dimensions. Similar to what problems we have solved in the classroom. There is no difference. Area is given and different area is given. Lengths are given. So one thing is length of this horizontal element is 500, and inclined element you have to find out. That is nothing but square root of the 500 square plus the 500 square. That is the length of the inclined element, and all procedure remains same. No change here. So that is asked for some marks. Just. So now one more university. This is 2010. That 2010 it was only the elective subject. Only 5 to 10, around 10 students are offering this subject, elective subject, and remaining 50, 55 they are offering some other theory or some easy subject. Only around 8 to 10 students used to attend for this elective FEM elective subject. That was that time there was one professor was there. He was teaching. He was the principal of BMSC. Then he joined BMSCT. Around 8 to 10 students are used to attend for this elective subject. So again, no difference. One force is given, only dimensions are different and boundary conditions are different. Don't worry about this. I think by mistake, typing mistake, your heat transfer problems comes. In the heat transfer, so you required to know about, there is a thermal conductivity matrix, K1, K2. Those values are required for finding out thermal conductivity matrix. For the element 1, we require K2, K1. Thermal conductivity matrix for the element 2, we may require what is thermal conductivity of the element 2. Like that, you required this H also. You require surrounding temperature, ambient temperature. That is not related to the truss problem. These values are not required for the truss. There is a typing mistake here. So now this is the one more problems. Again, it is normally 10 to 15 marks. Now I think as per your syllabus, it is I think it is around 16 marks then, because your examination is 2080. They may ask for the 16 marks. The same procedure, no changes. So the similar type of problems are solved in the finite element method by Halesh. You can go through this. Only boundary condition also almost same. So here there is one more problem here. So that is 2016, I think 10 again, 10 or 16. So again, 2 element truss. So here boundary condition is 0, 0. Here also horizontal displacement, vertical displacement is 0. Only Q1 and Q2 you have to find out. The area of the cross section is different. In all 3 problems, area is different, length of the element may be different, force may be different, but the concept remains same, no change in the concept. Then if you ask some exams, derive the expression for stiffness matrix for the 2D truss element. 2D truss element is nothing but a plane truss element. What you are doing now, it is a 2D truss element or plane truss element, because in global coordinate, so same point can move along x direction as well as y direction. The deformation may be along x direction as well as y direction. The force also may be in the along x direction as y direction, not in the z direction. Hence, it is referred to the 2D truss. That derivation already you are derive an expression for stiffness matrix for a 2D truss element. This is one. Derive the element stiffness matrix for the truss. Again, same thing is appear. Most of the time, the same question is asking. As per truss is considered, there is only one derivation, the derivation of the stiffness matrix. It also includes the transformation matrix. Sometimes they may ask derive an expression for stiffness matrix for a two-noded truss element. What matrix we have derived stiffness matrix again for the two-noded truss element. That one more problem appeared in the word question paper, the same what you have done today, same problem is appeared in the one more examination, I think for again for 10 marks or rather 15 marks. Sometimes they are asked for the 16 mark as per your scheme is considered, they may ask for the 10 mark or 16 mark. So whatever may be the type of truss problems, one important information you have to remember is stiffness matrix you have to remember, and you should know how to get the values of direction cosine. Direction cosine, one more formula, that is cos theta is equal to xj minus xi, etc. That's cos theta. One more is that. If you remember those three formulas, one is direction cosine, one for stress, and one more stiffness matrix, that is sufficient. The time is already over. I'll wind up the session. Okay, thank you. If you have any doubts, you can discuss in the next class. I think you can leave the session. I'm leaving the session. No others are joining now. So it is a time for leaving the session, not joining the session.